This conference will now be recorded.
And what up, everybody? It's Josh here with Trade with Traders. I'm excited today. We got a exciting guest. A lot of people have been asking to, hear a little bit more about his story. I'm here with Connor today, and he's on Twitter at PennyCons. But he's a young trader, been in the market for a couple of years now, but has had a ton of success. And I know a lot of people in the industry are just curious a lot, have been so interested in your story, interested in like how you're able to transition and make moves and the type of moves that you've been able to make. So I'm really excited for today and the talk. And so what's happening, bro?
What's going on, man? Just, decent start to the day. Nice morning. So, we're ready to go for this interview and I'm excited to do it with you guys.
What were you looking at this morning? What type of trades did you make?
I had a lot of PJet I've been out in the last few days. So, that it worked out well. PTON, I mean, I had that on my own scan and then I saw Matt post it too. So, that just adds confirmation, which is great. And, I had a big trade on that. I had a few short swings, which I'm really working on shorting right now. I'm not too good at it yet at all. So my size on that is like nothing, but I had like OCGN swing short from like $14 still. So, just a couple of trades here and there, a bit of a ETHE overnight, Hertz overnight, and just a couple of things that made it to be a pretty decent morning. So
When you're on the road, I know I'm gonna jump into some stuff before we get to the background, but just going
for
off of
sure.
that, when you're on the road like you are all the time traveling, what type of setup are you trading with? Like, how does it look? What is
So
it?
So I started traveling in September. I moved to Aruba for a few months and then to Mexico for a few months and kind of everywhere in between for a little bit. And so since then I've been trading off just a laptop. Um, a lot of times I'm on my phone too, but mostly it's just a laptop. I actually, I practiced. I think June of 2020, I started trading on just a laptop because I knew I was going to be traveling. So I'm like, I don't want to get there. And when I'm pretty young, so it was one of the first times I had a bunch of bills to my name and stuff. And I was like, I don't want it to be the first time I have a bunch of bills and stuff. And I'm not used to trading on this setup. So I started practicing just a laptop in 2020 June, and that's all I trade on now. I only use a laptop, and I mean, for me, I really like to nail specific trades. Like I keep my eyes on a couple things. I'm not the type to have 30, 40 tickers, just personally. So, the laptop doesn't actually come into, it doesn't hurt me too much because I'm so focused on just a few things, right? So I just use just a laptop.
I think that's most traders, right? Like most of the best traders I know, it's like they're all so dialed in on like 3 to 5 setups. So
Yeah.
do you ever trade from your phone?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, um, a lot of the time, I'll be out for the day or whatever. I'll have to go on my like, the thing with the market is I truly do love it. So, when it comes to days off or even time off, it's harder than you think it's going to be such a good time, but it gets a little hard for me. So, I'm on my phone quite a bit for trades still. When I mean, I just have TradingView on my phone and then my broker obviously in level two. So I can just check there just like I'm on my laptop. But usually if I'm trading via my phone, um, it's always going to be bigger picture stuff. I don't really take scouts on my phone. So, say I'm swinging something, and I mean, a swing for me might be a day or 2 days or 3 days or 3 weeks, whatever it happens to be. But that will usually be what I take on my phone.
Yeah, and if you do end up needing to like check something or you get some pings, don't feel any guilt about it. Like, don't worry. Like, we can just talk
Yeah.
about it. But if you get some stuff in the market, I know we were talking during market hours. So, let's get to like a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get involved in the markets? When did you start trading? And what did that look like for you? And
Yeah. So basically, so I'm 21. I was born in 2000. So 2016, weed like the weed stocks were going crazy. I mean, I'm sure they were going crazy earlier and later, but 2016 is when I first started hearing about it, and a lot of my friends started telling me about these weed stocks that they were in and how they were going to, go to $1 million basically, and all of this, and I mean, being the kid I was, I used to sell shoes, so I resold Yeezy, stuff like that. And I wanted to put some money into investing, so I thought, okay, you know what, I'll look for some of these weed stocks. So I bought Aurora Cannabis. And I remember it went up 100% for my entry. I sold it for 100% gain, and then I bought another weed stock. I can't remember what it was, and I told my dad, "Let me know when it's up 100%." And so, sorry, is this network connection moving out a little bit?
It's okay. You sound
Can you
fine
still
though.
hear
It's
me or
like,
no?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's laggy on the camera, but I can hear you fine.
Okay, okay, cool. All right, so yeah, I got in that, and then I started loving the like at the time the 100% gains I was getting, and I thought I was like a great trader and such. Obviously, I knew nothing at all, and so I was only 16, so I would just send my dad some money and ask him to put it in for me, and then at that point I was still in high school, obviously, and I kind of decided it was time to actually learn the market a little bit, and um, a few of my friends were getting all into these weed stocks, and I just thought like the way I was thinking back then was just if all my friends are doing it, it's probably not the best idea because I just thought like we're all 16-year-olds, like there's no way we came on to the next like you know um, crazy financial move, I guess you could say. So I started watching like Ricky Gutierrez on YouTube, and I basically just traded DGAS, UGAS, that type of stuff. Um, and then somehow I saw some OTC stock go up like 100% a day, and I was like, "What? Like that's unreal, right? Like there's no way that that can happen all the time." And I started seeing it happen. Like back then, it wasn't like today, but I mean, it happened relatively frequently. So, I started trading OTCs, and when I started doing that, I mean, I was getting just destroyed for the first while. It's a hard market to start in, right?
Yeah.
I honestly think that OTCs, when you're first starting, not in today's market, it's a little different, but if you started 2016, 17, 18, 9, or I guess 2017, 18, 19, or even 2020 at the beginning, I mean, it was one of the harder markets to start in because nothing was really working out. So I was getting destroyed originally, and I didn't have, I had a decent amount of capital for my age, but in terms of a trader, I didn't have much capital. So I was trading, OTCs because I thought, well, it's the best bet that I'll make money, right? Like I'll make a lot of money, at least in my mind. Um, and after a little bit of not doing the best in it, maybe a few months, I started to just really, I would study. I would trading every so at 7 a.m. I'd wake up, start.
It's a little laggy now, Connor. Having some technical difficulties. He'll be back on. Hope everybody's having a great day. Just getting this going. Yeah, so I actually met Connor a couple months ago. He had been following us on Twitter, and he uh, joined up in our community Trade with Traders. And we've had a lot of people express interest in hearing his backstory and hearing about his success. So I'm really excited just to kind of pick his mind more and see where how he's been able to level up so much at such a young age. But you can see how important like it is to kind of like get like have like understand where the themes are in the market. So his start was very similar to how I started in the markets in 2013 and 2012 was marijuana stocks. So it's very interesting there. But a lot of times how you get hooked in the market is you find a good theme or a good sector or a good stock and you make a lot of money on that stock, and then next thing you know you're like, all right, well, I don't know anywhere else in the world I can make this type of money. I'm gonna give him a couple minutes here to see if he can get his service back on. Short intermission. Good time to go to the bathroom, drink some water, breathe. He just messaged me. He's about to hop back on now. All right, perfect. We
My
back.
bad. Yeah, my
Every,
bad. I cut out there. So
everybody had a chance to go to the bathroom, drink some water there, breathe a little bit.
yeah, exactly. So where do you hear until? And
Yeah,
I'll
so
keep.
I was hearing about how you started trading to the OTC and then you'd wake up at like 7 a.m. and I think that's kind of where you start to leg out.
Right. Okay, so yeah, basically I'd wake up, 7 a.m. I'd start scanning everything pre-market, looking at news, filings, whatever. I'm really not a good filing reader. I still really not good at that, but I just started looking at everything pre-market, looking at charts pre-market, just reevaluating my game plan, and then trade 9:30 to 4, and then from 4 to 5 I take my break, and then 5 to around 10, maybe midnight, I would start running charts again and just recycle the process, right? So I really put my all into it, and
And what year was that? Like 2007,
uh,
18?
no, that was 2000. It was a little bit 2018, but it was mostly 2019 when I really started
Okay.
doing that, and I did that. I don't work as much currently. When the market's hot, I do. The market's a little. It's not my exact favorite right now, I guess you could say. So I'm working a little less and working on some other things, but I mean that's what it took for me to get to being a profitable trader. So I mean I don't know if it takes everybody that much, but for me it did, and I did that for probably a year and a half to 2 years straight, every single day, like no breaks. Um, and then now it's a little less, but only because how the market's been.
But also, I feel as though, like it takes everybody like that amount of time to get to the levels that they're looking to get to. It took me very similar story in terms of, dedicating everything, putting tons and tons of hours in. But now, I feel as though once you start to get like a certain amount of money, it's not necessarily the money, but the money is just a confirmation bias of like, okay, I'm
Yep.
trading well, I'm able to make money. And then
Yep.
you can kind of be like, all right, I can implement my systems, I can make moves easier, and you don't need to sit there and study charts because you can like
Yep.
you study charts, right? You studied the
Exactly.
price.
You already you already know them to a relative amount, right? And I mean, things switch up in the market all the time, so of course you're gonna have to start, like, but after you've been scanning for multiple years like that, I mean, you've seen a lot of charts. It's whatever rule they say, the 1,000 hour thing. I mean, I think it's way more than 1,000 hours personally,
I think
but
it's 10,000 hours.
10,000. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. So once you get those hours, and I mean, you can really pick up a lot of stuff, right? So I mean, for me, it took a long time before I got. I mean, I was profitable, but not anywhere near where I wanted to be by any means, And so it took me a long time to get there, but I mean, it was worth it, And now those breaks where the market slows down a bit and you want to take 2 weeks off, I mean, you can do it and not be stressed about it. You feel
Well,
like
I
it's the
feel
right
like
decision.
your story, I mean, like you think it took you a long time, but there's people who's been trading for 10
Oh yeah,
years. Like
yeah, most definitely.
you adapt it quickly, and a lot of it has to do with your generation and our
Yeah,
generation. I mean, we're the gaming generation. We're the generation that's been on the computer. Like everything was a game to us. Everything was like put it
for
in.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
like for you, like it was just like, all right, like older people or like people who are even like 5, 7 years older than me, like they weren't like involved with video games and online gaming like we were, where it was like we
yeah,
could pick up stuff quickly.
yeah.
So
No, exactly. No, for sure.
when you first started with the OTC, were you looking more at charts, or were you looking more of like speculative of like, okay, here's a story, like here's what's coming up here, and you're trying to
Yeah,
figure out
no,
where the due diligence was gonna like what was gonna be the next pop?
exactly. So, I was terrible when I first started. Like, straight up, I was terrible. I was, following the Twitter stuff, and I mean, I was new. I was also super young, so everything I was reading, I was believing, right? So, when you read these things about like CMGO was one as an example, like about a court settlement, and I thought, once this gets to settlement, I was writing down what the price per share would be and all of that. And I mean, it's obviously not how you're supposed to trade. I mean, at least in my opinion. But back then it was a bit different of a market than it is now. So now the stories actually can help a bit because you know what's going on. Back then, a lot of it was just if you're buying too late, you're buying too late. It's as simple as that, right? So when I first started, it was all just that. And then at one point, I started to say, you know what? I'm looking at these charts every day. I'm learning these charts, but these stories are where I get a little too wrapped into it. I start to fall in love with it a little too much. So I said, you know what? From now on, I'm not checking anything on Twitter. I'm not checking any. I think they call them cash tags. I'm not checking any cash tags. I don't want to know the story. I want to know like the relative story. What's the sector, like that type of thing. But
Yeah.
I don't want to know the full story. I just want to know the chart. And when I started doing that, that's when the OTC started to really click for me.
And when
Because
was
I
that?
was focused on, in my opinion, which isn't, that was probably 2019. 2019 was my big breakthrough of trading. Like not my sorry, 2020 to 2021 was the big breakthrough in money terms, but in terms of actually getting to the point where I was profitable and knew what I was doing, it was 2019. Was like, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to say I know what I was doing, but you know what I mean. Like when I got profitable, like that was
Yeah.
2019
And
when
you
things.
did. Like, I mean, you started to learn, but also at that point, were you starting to like, were you involved with the community at all? Like, I know you talk with like OTC
Um,
Paula and some other people, but like,
yeah.
who
So
back in the day, like, who were you like riding with, or who were you following? Like, what was the big accounts that you were
um,
really?
so back then I didn't have Twitter. I was in a mentorship at the time, and I I don't have too many good things to say at all about that mentorship, so I would rather just not say anything because, I'm not trying to shit on anybody's business or anybody in particular, so nothing like that at all. But I was in a mentorship and I talked to nobody, and then um, maybe 2020, I mean, sorry, 2019, when I started to do good trading, I ended up getting kicked out of that mentorship. And again, that's a whole long story that really doesn't matter. But basically, I started trading by myself fully, and I got Twitter back, and I started following a few people that I've been friends with for a while, like you said, Bala. Like I've known him, or like known him through Discord and stuff since I started trading. Nice guy, and started just talking with friends again, and I never really talked to anyone about trading because I really wanted to learn it on my own. And one of the things I was struggling with back then was I would think that these traders that make more than me are way smarter than me. And there's a ton that are way smarter than me. But the problem that I ran into was if they didn't agree with me or if they weren't on the same play or whatever it was, I thought I was doing something wrong. Right.
Right.
And the problem with that as a trader, I mean, of course, you want to look for certain guys that can give you confirmation. But if you rely on the confirmation, you'll never make it. Right. So I just took it upon myself to not talk to people about trading really, for the most part, right? Like, of course, you bounce questions off people every now and then, but not often at least. So I was doing trading completely by myself for a while, and then 2020, I started talking to in the mid 2020, I started
During
talking
that
to people a
time
bit
period
again.
though, were you like kind of stalking the networks? Like that's what I was doing early. Like even if I wasn't talking to people, I kind of like work around. Like I didn't really
Yeah,
know people,
yeah,
but I would kind of like stalk the network and be like,
yeah,
okay, let's see what's happening
yeah,
here.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So what I was doing is I was just reverse engineering a lot of these people's plays, right? Like I was trying to
Yeah,
figure out like what were they looking for and this and that. And I've never been the type of kid that really wants like a handout or anything like that. So to me, it was like I don't want to message him and say, "What did you see?" I want to figure it out myself, right? Like that was the game to me. It was like, how can I figure out what they're looking for and stuff like that?
agreed.
And so then, I mean, I was watching pretty much any ticker that was moving. I might not be in it early, but I'm watching them all every day, right? So then I started making my own strategies based off what I was already watching, is already seeing, um, these tickers move and how they were moving and all of that. And I started seeing the biggest part to me is the psychology behind it, right? I'm a very psychological trader, so when I was seeing all the psychology behind certain things and why they would move in certain ways, I was always reverse engineering in my brain, like, okay, why did that do that? Why did this do this? Right. And that, I mean, that might be more for OTC because, a lot of it is psychological to me, but for bigger boards, I haven't really clicked in that psychological mindset.
In the psychological aspect of like OTC, a lot of it has like these like I created like formulas back in like 2014 to like 2017 when I first
Right.
started. I was like, okay, if it has this type of share structure with this type of story and it looks like this, and I started to like write down these variables kind of the
Yeah.
same way. I was my whole process was pretty similar to yours as well, and be like, how do I find these 100% movers? And I'd
Yeah.
go back and like look at who was posting on these 100% movers, and I'd be like, what were they looking at?
Looking
And
for,
then
yeah.
I was like, all right, here's some of the variables that they were using.
Yeah. And, I reverse engineered a lot of people, and a lot of people don't like to talk about. Like, I mean, I would go and look at, like, Tim Sykes trades. Like, I just wanted to see what everybody was kind of doing around the market, and I'd start to figure out, so that way I know when something happens, I could kind of try and piece it together, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely a good. I mean, because it's like if it's a game, there's tricks to the trade, right? There's tricks to
exactly.
the
Yeah.
trade in every industry. There's a tricks to the trade in every profession, and
Yeah.
so you're trying to learn the tricks of the trade. You're trying to get yourself into a position of like, okay, if this is a statistical game and I can give myself a statistical edge, what are some of the tricks that work in the market?
Yeah. And it's exactly that, right? Like, it's a zero sum game. Somebody's losing, right? So, I mean, why would you want to why would you want to be the one that loses? You got to be the one that wins, right? So if you reverse engineer these guys' things, even if you find somebody's one strategy and you think you got it, as long as you're beating them in that strategy, you're gonna make money, right?
For
Like, as long as their
sure.
strategy is good, obviously. So I would look for that type of stuff. How can I beat my competitors? And that's when I really had my breakthrough, when I convinced myself, like, you're in a strategic game. You have to win. You can't follow everything. You have to beat them, right? Like, you have to win the game,
The
and that's
funny
the only
thing
way to make
about
money.
OTC The funny thing about OTC, on a quick note, it really is like one-on-one, like death match or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Because you can kind of figure out who's going to come where, and you can basically kind of position yourself prior to, and then be like,
Yeah.
okay, beat him to the punch, beat that person to
Yeah.
the punch. Like it's really interesting, like especially when you're trading OTC, it's like it really is just like you figure out who the players are. Like right now, I'm sure you're well aware. Like the game's very interesting for the OTC when you've been involved in it and you know how to make money off of it.
Yeah, I mean, the market's crazy right now. Like, I've been trading big boards the last 2, 3, 4 months now, probably 3 or 4 months, and OTCs here and there. A couple trades here and there, but I've been trading big boards a lot, and I mean, when you go look at the OTC Twitter, I guess you'd call it like that side of Finswit. I mean, it's all these people I've never seen before. Like, they're brand new, and I mean, they're doing great. Good for them. That's awesome. I'm happy for everyone, but it's a different market right now for sure. I mean, the last year's been crazy in all senses of all markets, right? But there's been a lot of people blow up that it's like, damn, like a year ago. I mean, me too, I was, a year ago, it's not like anybody knew who I was. People still don't know who I am. I don't have followers, but I don't really tweet like that in the first place. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, and it's good to see. But
Oh yeah, dude. So, you went to trading the OTC, and then basically up to 2020, like mid, I think, when did you start? So can you talk about your transition into big boards now and kind of like,
yeah,
so early on you spent a lot of time into like trading the OTC, learning the patterns, learning the basics. I'm sure you got a lot of the principles of the market, start to
yeah.
see some success, learn how markets work. And now, we're in 2020 and you start inching away from OTC. What was the decision behind that, and what was like the I should say inspiration behind going to putting venturing off into big boards?
So I'm a very, very technical trader. I've always been a very technical trader, and I enjoy that a lot more. I love charts. I love scalping. I love playing things on the 1 minute and just crushing it, and that's always been the type of trader I've been. So OTC was always the start of it, was just, I didn't have the capital where I could go make huge gains on big board. I mean, theoretically, right? Like, I've never used margin in my life. So I've never, other than for like shorts and stuff, but not true margin. Like, I'm not using it on my longs or exposure. Um, but yeah, so basically, I was just trading OTC to start because I wanted to make money off a little sum of money, and that was, the easy thought process back in the day. And then when I started making good money, and I had, in relative terms, good money, and I had relatively a good amount of an account, I started looking at big boards again and playing those. And small caps, I started doing the same thing I did in the OTC, just trying to reverse engineer some stuff. You know, watch these guys, see what they're posting, see if I can figure out a little bit behind them and what they're looking for, and see if I can spot these things a little myself. And then also mid caps. I mean, I really one thing I'll pride myself in as a trader is my charting. I've done so much research on charts that I can chart pretty well, and with uh, with mid caps and even large caps, I'm pretty decent at charting them. So that's one of my favorite parts about trading now is just the mid cap and large cap side. So really the reason I transitioned was just because I started getting the account size where I felt it was you know um, I was gonna make it worth my while to transition. And then also, I mean, OTC was never an end game for me. I mean, it was a great market to start trading in, but I never wanted it to be what I traded the whole time or anything. I wanted to move on eventually to big boards for sure. And, I got to the place where financially it made sense to me and I started doing so. So that's kind of why I started to transition. And, it's been a time. I'm still a lot better at like cult type tickers on big boards, mid, large caps. Like, I mean, I'm still a lot better at those just because I can kind of see the psychology behind them and how they're being maneuvered and manipulated and that type of thing. But I'm trying to learn all of it, so that's kind of what I've been focusing on the past while. And I a lot of my strategies I run quants on, so I've been trying to run some quants on big boards. And it's tough. It's hard to find something for sure, but it's a fun thing to do. It really enhances a part of your brain that I think is really good to enhance. So
So back in the day, you talked about basically working almost 15-hour days, right? Like
yeah.
now, with the where you're at now, like what does a typical day look like in terms of, how are you scanning? How are you finding some of these mid cap, large cap, small cap stocks? And what does
Yeah,
the like
so
yeah, what does a life of Connor look like? A typical trading day?
so basically to explain how it got this way, I started running quants in about September. And one of the things that I never thought of, I said, okay, well, I'm running quants on these strategies to see how they
For
work and
someone
how
who
they
doesn't
perform.
know, could you just explain what a quant is and like what does that mean? What does that look
All
like?
right, so a quant would be I can't say the word, but a quantitative analysis. And so basically what it would refer to is, a mathematical, how would I explain it? Like, let's say an example to make it a little easier. Let's say if your strategy, this is a random strategy, don't copy this one, but let's say it's a ticker's up 10%. Is it going to go up another 10%? So you run quants on it, okay? So you look through all those tickers that fit that category, and you see that, you know, 3.2% of the time they run another 10% with a 3 to 1 profitable ratio and a couple other data points, right? Based on that, you can see if it's a strategy worth your while, right? So I would run these quants on strategies I was looking for and see if they were worth my while and how profitable they were, how often they happened, all of that type of thing. And what I started to realize was I'm running all these quants on strategies, but I've never ran a quant on myself. I've never seen where my peaks are, what my profitable hours are, what my profitable rate is at these hours, and all of that type of thing. And what I noticed is between 9:30 and 11, I was making about 88% of my money. Between 3 and 4, I was making the other 12%. And between 11 and 2, 11 and 3, averagely, I was actually losing money. So what I realized on that was, okay, during those hours, clearly my patterns aren't there and I'm forcing things a little too much, and it's really that simple, right? Like I just wasn't performing in those hours. So there's no point in having that added stress, that added work, etc., just to not do too great, right? So what I ended up doing was after running that quant on myself, basically, I ended up, and I mean, my quants are very, very, very basic. I'm not the best at math, so they're very basic stuff.
Are
But
you using
when
quant?
I figured this out about myself, I ended up only changing my trading strategy to 9:30 to 11. Pardon?
Um, yeah, no, I agree with that. That's a trick of the trade.
I did not hear you there. I don't know if it cut out, but
I can hear you. That's a trick of the trade, though. I mean, it's so easy for people to get caught up into like thinking that they have to stay around and trade the
okay.
whole entire day, like it's trade the market all hours. But it's like playing a
Mhm.
game, right? Like when you come into the game with fresh perspective, like, okay, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna focus in, I'm gonna dial in, and I know that I have an edge, and I know that I'm extremely focused. And as you start to hang around
Yeah,
longer, your focus dives down. Your plan and the way that you like had your game, like your mental awareness starts to decrease because you get absorbed in the game. You get absorbed with the algorithms. You get absorbed with the quants. You get absorbed with the prop traders. So now it's a lot more hectic, and you start to lose your edge as a retail trader.
e- exactly. So, one thing that was rejuvenating was once I came up with that process. I mean, my day ended up being, between I wake up around 8:30, I scan till 9:30, I work 9:30 to 11, then at 11, in Aruba when I was there for most of the winter, and then Mexico, I just go to the beach the rest of the day, chill at a beach club, and then at 3, if I want, I could go home and trade the last hour, and I'd usually just go home, trade the last hour, and then around 9 o'clock I'd scan till, I mean 8 o'clock scan till 10, right? So that was kind of my day, and I remember I kept worrying that I wasn't working hard enough because it was such a change, right? Before I was working so much more. And when I joined Trade with Traders and I saw that Matt and Josh, you guys were willing to, crush the market open and then go take off, for a good amount of the market hours, it was like, okay, like obviously there's other good traders who realize this too. And it's just, you don't have to be there the whole day if your trading setup and trading strategies don't pertain for some of those hours, right? And some of those hours I just wasn't crushing shit. I wasn't having a good time in theoretical terms when it comes to money and when it comes to the stress that it was causing. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to trade these hours. And so once I heard you guys did kind of similar, I mean, that was pretty rejuvenating because it showed me, okay, I'm not crazy. Clearly, there's some other good guys who do the same.
Well, the thing is, it's so easy to get caught up in the 9 to 5 trap. It's so easy to
Yeah,
think like this is how you get wealthy. Like, but this is
yeah,
how
no,
you make,
exactly.
like, let me exchange an hour of this time for a dollar amount, but that's not how it works in the wealthy terms. That's not how I think. It's like
No,
so easy to be like, I have to sit here and do this all day. But that's
yeah,
not why I intend to do this, right? I intend to do this
no,
because
not
I'm
at
like,
all.
I don't want to do that all day.
Yeah, no, that was the whole point. I had to remind myself of that, and I remember I've actually creeped your profile way back to like 2017. And I remember seeing your posts of you traveling all the time and posting like screenshots of gains and stuff. And that shit inspired me a lot when I was starting out, not starting out, but maybe beginning of 2020, because I was like, that's exactly what I want. Like I just want to travel, and I want to make money to pay for my travels. And really after that, that's all that matters. So I started reminding myself that when the market slowed down, for me at least in September, October, November of 2020, I was making like less money, and I remember reminding myself that okay, I can have this day where I make X amount of money and I'm there all day, or I can have this day where I make one quarter of X, but then I go and I spend the day at some like hidden private beach in Aruba, and then I go meet a couple people and chill with them and have some drinks and have a great time, and then I already made money to pay for that whole week that day. And I was
Yeah.
like, what, that's what life is to me, that's what matters more. So that really helped me realize that I didn't need to be during market hours there the whole time. As long as I'm enjoying life in a general term, that's what matters at the end of the day. And I mean, I know it takes making some money to get there. You can't just do that if you're not making decent money. But um, that was always the goal for me. Was once I started making decent money, is to really enjoy life, right? So. Taking some time off during the market days. I mean, nowadays I'm so happy that I started doing that because it provides a freedom that really shows you why you do your job, right? Like the
For
money's cool,
sure.
but it does, I don't know. To me, like I could look at my bank account and I'm not going to be like, that's why I trade. But when I look at this stuff, like it reminds me why, so
I agree. And that's kind of what I talked about on Sunday's webinar when I was talking about like the reason that I hadn't had a last good 3 or 4 weeks was because I was so attached to the numbers. I started getting connected to the numbers rather than really understanding why do I do this, and why do I do this is for freedom. Why I do this is to be able to like go to those private islands, like private beaches, like make a little bit of money. I don't really care how much it is. It's just like I know it's
yeah,
enough to fund whatever I want to do at this point. And
no, exactly.
once you start getting these like hard expectations of like when you go through big periods of time, and like this is going to be a good leadway. So when you're going through big periods of time, right, when you're making going from $500 days to $20,000 days to 40, $50,000 days, you know, how have you been able to adjust to like I feel as though it's difficult for traders to psychologically go back to be like, okay, now I'm good with $500 days, $1,000 days. Like, what's the tricks that you use to like help you keep that perspective?
So basically the way that I see it is there's certain times when you need to build your account and there's certain times when you need to pay your bills. And those two different times are very different. There's two very different times. Sometimes you need to make money to pay what you're doing. That's it. And other times you need to build your account. And when the market slows down and you go back to these days where you're just trying to pay your bills, that's all the market. That's the market. That's the game you're playing, right? It's like, there's different game modes of every game, right? And in the stock market, to me, there's two big umbrellas of game modes, and one is build your account, and one is pay your bills. And so, when it's build your account, go hard, right? Like build that account. But as soon as it becomes pay your bills, that's all that matters to you. So for me, whenever the market starts to slow down, I just remind myself that's all this is right now. It's just the game mode I'm playing, right? It's
Yeah,
just build,
I like that.
pay your bills, and then when you get back to the market when it's hot, build your account again. And if you follow that cycle, you're gonna build your account and then you're gonna be content. You're never gonna be fully content. It's hard to be, but you're gonna be pretty content with your account size. So when it comes to paying your bills and it's that type of market, that type of game mode, you could say, it's a lot easier to just be accepting of that because you've already built your account in theoretical terms. So that's the way I see it. There's always two different type of umbrellas in the market, and when it's a market that's a little slower, I'm just focusing on paying my bills.
So, another like just a note off of that is like what when you're in the account building size or paying the bills, like what are some of the other motives that keep you inspired? Like because I feel as though as traders we have a lot of time, and like there's
Yeah.
moments a lot of time to reflect and be like, okay, why am I making all this money? So what are some of the stuff that you are like passionate about that help drive your interest and help you achieve, I guess, at a high level in the markets?
It's just honestly, it's everybody has these goals when they first start, right? And they might start off stupid, and you might start off with I want to trade stocks because I want a Rolex or I want a Lambo or I want whatever, right? Whatever your goal is. As soon as you get to that goal, usually, at least for me as a person, that goal is not the goal that I want anymore. I've reached it. I want to get a new one, right? So, I just keep my goals super high. So my goals are, to have other passive businesses that aren't truly passive. I'm still working. I love to work, but I'm passive as in they're not my main thing. And that's one of my biggest goals, to have multiple businesses in fields that I just love. I truly enjoy. Like I've already talked to you about it, the videography thing. I mean, that's why I started traveling, was seeing these videography masterpieces really that just inspired me to get out there and see the world. So I'm funding a company for that, and it's just little things like that that inspire me daily. I want to be able to do all these little things, and then like one of the things that keeps me going is, when you take a big loss day, the way I always see it is look at your account now versus look at your account a year ago. For me, a year ago, I couldn't take that loss. I didn't have the money to take that loss, right? Like it would be impossible. So today, it's like, yeah, I took a big loss, but you know what? I didn't have this a year ago, so it's still up. If that makes sense. Like I'm a very positive person. I look at everything on the positive side. So and of course I'm very realistic with myself. If I lost $1 million tomorrow, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's good. I'm going to be like, what the hell am I doing? But um, in terms of you know staying staying sane when those things happen, you just got to look at it in the positive term. And I mean, none of this starts off easy. If it starts off easy, it's going to get hard before it gets a lot better. It's just how it goes. So I like to remind myself of that. And when the market slows down, I remind myself of what I did and not what I've done since the market slowed down, I guess, if that makes sense.
So what would be, I don't really have much more, in terms of stuff, but I want to kind of give some closing thoughts on just like more of like we have new traders, right? 21-year-olds who are just now getting in the market, older people, 25, 30, doesn't matter the age, right? Age is irrelevant. But what are some of the key principles that you think are so important that every trader should understand? And then I'll transition
Um,
to some of the rules and just a little bit about like what are the keys to success in your opinion in the markets?
For sure. So a lot of this is going to get psychological, and it's just based on my experience. So one of them, like you were saying, Josh, which I completely agree with, is age is irrelevant, because one of the things I used to do is I used to say, "Oh, I'm doing good for my age," or "this for my age," and sometimes I still say it. But the thing is, if you're going to choose to play a game with the big boys, then you can't say you're too young or you're young and you're doing good. There's no age anymore. You're choosing to play a game with the big boys. You gotta act like a big boy at the end of the day. It's just like if you choose to play, if you're 16 and you choose to play soccer with 18-year-olds, you can't say, "Oh, I'm good for 16." You're playing with 18-year-olds. It was your choice. So I completely agree with that, and I try to remind myself of that very frequently. So never let your age get to you. If you're young, good for you. That's probably better than being old at the end of the day. So that's a big thing. Secondly, the quantifying yourself is huge. Anytime I talk to new traders that I'm friends with, I tell them straight up, quantify yourself, see what works for you. What works for you might like what works for me might not work for Josh, might not work for Matt exactly. It might not be the exact thing, but see what works for you and then go from there, because if you keep doing things that don't work for you, you're never going to get to the point you want to be. And quantifying yourself really really helps, especially in just knowing certain things, like what hours you work best in, what hours you do better in. I mean, it can be as simple as for me, 9:30 to 11, I could size more than I do during the middle of the day. It's that simple, right? But it really really helps. um, Another thing that was a big thing for me, this is a little different. I actually haven't heard any other traders say it, but I did therapy for a long time, about a year, once a week, and every day I just ask questions about why my mind works in certain ways regarding the market. So why do I trade this way? Why do I trade that way? Why did this loss affect me? Why did this gain not affect me, etc. And I mean, I'm not saying go to therapy for a year. I mean, I took it to an extensive approach because I really wanted to learn, and I mean, it paid off. But if you can learn your brain in any type of way, just be very aware of how your brain works, and it'll do wonders for you, especially in the psychological side of the market. Um, and then finally, I mean, in key approaches to success in the market, just stay super disciplined. If you say you're trading 9:30 to 11, trade 9:30 to 11. Don't trade at 11:30. Just stay super disciplined in any sense of approach. And I mean, those four things have changed me as a trader and really helped me get to the point where I am. So
That's amazing stuff. And I like the therapy thing. I mean, because really, I think what it's about is I was listening to a guy who is like, one of the best at understanding the mind and manipulating the mind in a positive way. And
right,
a lot of ways are like what they've found are the most useful is how you ask yourself questions. Like you answer asking those questions, like, why am I doing
yeah,
this? Your brain starts to figure out, like, why am I doing this? Like,
exactly. Yeah, that's the whole
what
thing. I mean, the brain's a crazy thing. It can answer a lot of the questions for you. You just have to ask the questions. If you're not asking the questions, how are they going to be answered, right? So
very
that was one
important
of the
point
big
there.
things for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was one of the bigger things for me, is just because here's the thing, right? Like I've learned, and I've said this openly, and I'm not saying this because I'm on a webinar. Like in serious terms, I've learned a lot from Trade with Traders, and one of the things is everything I learned from you guys, I learned how like why it works for you guys and how it can work for me. But unless I ask myself that question, how can this work for me? I'm never gonna know how it works for my person, right? My brain, and you really need to ask those questions in order to do crazy in any type of aspect in life. So I think that's a really big part.
I think that like a cool thing about the some of the communities is more about understanding perspectives and like kind of like getting around people who might be better than you in different areas, not just
Yeah,
trading, maybe connections, maybe just like
exactly.
mindset. Like, so, there's obviously lots of communities out there doing a lot of great work. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was going to lead to. Like, what you don't have to say anything about trade with trades, but like, what are some tools if someone's like, if someone comes across this video on YouTube, like, what are some tools that you'd be like, hey, I think this would be a good place to start. This is a good place to look into, like, how you could start to educate yourself.
I mean, honestly, financial Twitter, people hate on it. People say it's full of scammers, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Follow them, reverse engineer, do whatever the fuck you need. Sorry, not to swear, but do whatever you need to do. And, you can learn a lot on financial Twitter as much as people say you can't. Um, Again, I know you said you don't need to say it, but I truly mean it. I mean, I'm a very, in relative terms, profitable trader, and I'm still here for a reason. So, trade with traders is a great, great aspect and a great spot to be. There's a lot of good traders here, not even just excluding Matt and Josh. I mean, all of the Flex crew is really good. TJ, Bullflex, they're great traders. There's a lot of good guys in that chat, Ron, everybody. Um, so that's a good spot too. This is always a question I struggle with a little more because since I learned so by myself, I don't really know many other areas to check in on. I mean, I'd even go as far to say as reverse. I don't want to name drop these people, but certain people that are, mentorship sellers that you got that a lot of people on Twitter don't like. I mean, reverse engineer their stuff, guys. Like, try and figure out through them, and you can figure out a lot of stuff. So.
Dude, it's been amazing, bro. I pretty appreciate your time here, honestly. I know that a lot of people are gonna find value in this, and definitely inspirational to be able to, talk with you. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that I would love to pick your mind with going forward and just different projects and stuff that we're working on here in Austin. I think you'd love this city.
Oh
So
yeah, and like I said, I want to buy some property there, so you might see me there sooner than later. So
if you're ever in town, man, you better hit me up.
of course, 100%, bro.
All right. Well, really appreciate your time, Connor. You
Yeah,
guys
for
can
sure. Thank you
follow
for having me.
at Twitter at PennyCons, but hey, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And Boca, I know you're always on the road, so keep us posted. Post some pictures on Twitter wherever you're at. I know everyone's
Yeah,
curious.
I'm always moving, always moving. But yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, cool. Have a great rest of your day, Connor. I'll talk to you later.
You too, man. See ya.